Sangye Chirdan Soki Chognam La Jang Cho Bardu Dagni Kyap Suchi Dagi Chinyin Gi Pe Solam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Drupa Shu Sangye Chirdan Soki Chognam La Jang Cho Bardu Dagni Kyap Suchi Dagi Chinyin Gi Pe Solam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Drupa Shu Sangye Chirdan Soki Chognam La Jang Cho Bardu Dagni Kyap Suchi Dagi Chinyin Gi Pe Sonam Gi Drola Penchir Sangye Drupa Shu.
Thank you, Bob. Morning, everybody. Okay, so let's just do a couple of minutes meditation on the breath to calm and center our mind, get focused. So think, the purpose of my life is to lead all sentient beings out of suffering to enlightenment. So try to feel that very deeply. in order to do that, first, I have to reach enlightenment myself. Therefore, I'm going to study the teachings on the graduated path to enlightenment based on Atisha's text, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. I'm doing this in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Also, as we know, Geshe-la's father passed away a couple of days ago in Tibet. And a couple of days before that, Lynette's sister passed away. So also think that we're doing, studying these teachings for their benefit, to be reborn in a Pure Land, where they can reach enlightenment. If not, receive perfect human rebirth, meet holy Mahayana teacher, practice Dharma, never again be reborn in the lower realms, and quickly reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So we're directing our energy towards those goals as well. So that's not dedication. We dedicate after we've created merit. So so if we make that, so this is kind of an aspirational prayer. When we do a dedication prayer, it's after we've created the merit. We have something to dedicate. So we'll do that at the end. But just to remember Geshe-la's father, and there's a medicine Buddha Puja at 1 today for Geshe-la's father, and so to remember Geshe-la's father and Lynette's sister. So we're studying Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, in case everybody's forgotten. And, you know, we got to these verses 8 and 9 as preliminaries to taking the Bodhisattva vows, with a 7-part offering from the King of Prayers. So then last few weeks, we've been looking at the 7-limb practice as the essence of purification and creation of merit, which is which are the essential practices really for us at this point in our Dharma career. And we're of the various versions of the 7-limb practice that we can find, like in Guru Puja or in the 7-limb prayer itself, the short one. You know, there's a verse by verse one, there's a 7-line one. And we're looking at the 7-limb practice in the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, since that's the essential practice for us as Gelug practitioners. And this is when we do the Guru Yoga preliminary, we base it on the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. So it's important for us to be very familiar with this practice, with the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga practice. Of course, we do it every time when we do the Kurukulla preliminary prayers. So last time we were looking at Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teachings. Probably don't have this book, it's online anyway, you know where it is. And we finished the section, I didn't read the whole thing because it's so long, the section on rejoicing. So Rinpoche's teachings in his Ganden Lak Yema commentary on particularly on confession and rejoicing. They're very extensive. I don't know if you'll find more detailed teachings on those two practices than what you'll find in this text. But then the next verse is requesting the Lama to turn the wheel of Dharma. For some reason, it doesn't seem Rinpoche taught that verse when he gave this commentary. This commentary was given in Dharamsala in '84, I think. No, in '86. So, yeah, I don't know why Rinpoche skipped that, but so to look at teachings on that, I'll look at Geshe Rabden's commentary. So we also have Geshe Rabden's commentary and Tensab Tsogkhan Rinpoche's commentaries on this practice that we've been looking at, and you have the links to those as well. So Geshe Rabden, in his teaching on this verse, requesting turn the wheel of Dharma, our verse we just chant goes, Venerable Gurus from love and wisdom, clouds densely massed in your Dharma sky, pray loose a rain of vast profound Dharma. What's the last line? On fields of disciples just as needed, something like that. So the translation here is similar, thank goodness. Please, holy Jetsun Gurus from billowed clouds of compassion and wisdom in the sky of Dharmakaya, make rainfalls of profound and extensive teachings of whatever is suitable for the ears of sentient beings who are the objects to be subdued. So our verse is a little abbreviated to make it chantable. So this is a little slightly more literal translation. And we don't have Lama Zopa Rinpoche's translation, obviously. So Jetsun Lama, so in Tibetan, Jetsun Lama Dampa Kyenam Ki. I think we do this as a second verse of the mandala offering when we do our concluding prayers. Is that right, Bob? Anyway, I think so. Jet, Dampa Kyenam Ki Jita Tsampe Dulce Zimala Shabge Cherki Chava Baptiso. So Jetsun Lama means venerable Lama. I explained the meaning of that in verse 2 of Jetsun. So we did that. Dampa means holy or supreme, the supreme guru. Lama Tsongkhapa has given us all the methods and prerequisites that gradually lead us to the attainment of the ultimate goal of enlightenment. Therefore, he is the supreme Lama. Kyenam Ki means by you. The next line says that all of space of Dharmakaya is filled with the clouds of wisdom and love. Churku means Dharmakaya, Kala means space. Because Lama Tsongkhapa is a Buddha, his mind is in the nature of the Dharmakaya. In Dharmakaya, you know, the omniscient mind of the Buddha. His mind resembles space, infinite space. Gathering in this space of Lama Tsongkhapa's Dharmakaya mind are clouds of wisdom and compassion from which falls rain. Kien means wisdom, Tse means love, and bodhicitta, the method side qualities of mind. So vast and profound Dharma. So vast means is the method side, bodhicitta, and profound is the emptiness or the wisdom side. So this analogy that they always use, that a bird needs two wings to fly. So for us to fly to enlightenment, we need the two wings of method and wisdom. So here the method is bodhicitta, and the wisdom is the realization of emptiness. Tim Chigne means by gathering the clouds. So when we do the mandala at the end, we'll remember this. The next line says, make rainfalls of profound, extensive teachings of whatever is suitable for the ears of sentient beings who are the objects to be subdued. Jitat Sampe means fittingly, or whatever is suitable. We're requesting the Lama to turn the wheel of Dharma to give teachings in a way that fits or suits the capacity of the sentient beings. So this has a deep meaning. For example, a wise doctor gives medicine to different patients according to the strength of their body. A doctor does not prescribe strong medicine for a person who's very weak because the patient's body cannot support it. Therefore, the doctor prescribes a milder medicine. For patients with stronger bodies, the doctor prescribes stronger remedies. Like this, in a fitting way, the doctor writes the prescription. The doctor just thinking, I have this really strong medicine, and then immediately prescribing it without thinking about the capacity of the patient may do more harm than good. It's the same for patients as well. They should take the medicine that suits their body. They can't just go out and buy the strongest medicine there is without taking into account the strength of their body. Therefore, in the same way, we request the Lama to teach the Dharma according to our capacity for the benefit of all sentient beings. If a Lama gives a student of small capacity a very high and powerful practice, it may harm rather than help the student. Dulja means disciple, the object to be subdued. Zimma is another Tibetan word for earth or ground. Dulce Zimmala means on the field or ground of the disciples, the objects to be tamed. Shab means profound, gya, vast, extensive, Cherki of Dharma, Chava, rain, Babtu sol, let pour down. Thus we're requesting the Lama to let pour down the rain of profound and extensive Dharma, fittingly on the grounds of disciples. So, there are different ways that the Lamas give teachings, commentaries. So some of them sort of general, sort of referring to the text as a whole or the verse as a whole, and then gives a general explanation of it. And there are other times, like here, where the Lamas give a word-by-word commentary. So they look at every word or every couple of words in the verse and then explain the meaning of those words and then put it all together. So this is what Geshe Rapta Rinpoche is doing here. Because as I mentioned before, he always had his students study and learn Tibetan. So he always took pains to explain the meaning of the Tibetan words one by one. The other way of giving a commentary is like Lama Zopa Rinpoche gives a commentary, like when he came to Kurukulla to give a commentary on the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva. I think he mentioned the name of the text and never referred to it once. So that's another way of doing it, I guess. I think I'm maybe following that example because the subject of this is a lamp for the path to enlightenment, but I'm hardly referring to it at all. We'll get back to it. We have years, maybe. As I mentioned before, this is Geshe Rapta. As I mentioned before, generally in the 7th limb puja, the request for the long life of the Lama or the Buddhas is the 6th of the 7 limbs. So normally it would come at this point. But in this practice, because it's such an important request, it's explained at the beginning. So then, so that's that. Then the final verse then is dedication. So I'm just wondering if Rinpoche talked about sometimes the request for the Lamas to live long and to give teachings, which is why we want them to live long. Sometimes the explanation of that's combined because they're closely connected. Anyway, the final verse in the 7 limbs then is dedication. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teaching and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Dragpa to shine forever. So we dedicate, so I'll just do this brief explanation by Geshe Rapta, and then we'll look at what Lama Zopa Rinpoche has to say. We dedicate all the merits that we've accumulated since beginningless time up to now for 2 great purposes. One is for the benefit of the doctrine, the teaching, for the flourishing and stability of the Dharma. So, if we do that, that increases our chances of meeting the Dharma again in future lives. If we make very strong aspirational prayers for the Dharma to flourish. The other great purpose is for the benefit of all sentient beings. Then in particular, since this is a Guru Yoga practice in connection with Lama Tsongkhapa, we dedicate all our merit for the flourishing stability of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings, the essence of which is the 3 principal aspects of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and the realization of emptiness. The essence of the teaching of Lama Tsongkhapa is these 3 principles of the path and the practice of Tantra as well. We dedicate our merit for all that to flourish forever. So in the collected works of Lama Tsongkhapa and his 2 disciples, Gyaltsab-je and Khedrub-je, there are 38 volumes. I think 18 of those are by Lama Tsongkhapa, 14 by Gyaltsab-je and 6 by Khedrub-je. I'm not sure of those last 2, if they're that way or the other way. Anyway, so Wisdom Publications have a project to get all those translated and published. So maybe in your lifetime, probably not in mine. So we'll see. That'd be amazing. I wish they were available now. So that's why Geshe Rapta always pushed his students to study Tibetan, because there's just so much more available in Tibetan than will ever be in English. Actually, there isn't any separate independent doctrine or tradition of Lama Tsongkhapa. In reality, the tradition of Lama Tsongkhapa is the Kadam tradition, which was founded by Lama Atisha. But then we have this term Gelug, which makes it even worse. It is not only pronounced incorrectly, but it's also spelt wrong. It should be Ga, not Ge, Galug, not Gelug, because Lama Tsongkhapa founded the first monastery, the great monastery on the mountain, Ganden Monastery. So once Lama Tsongkhapa's tradition became established, people started calling it the Gaden Lug, or Galug for short. Lug means tradition. So Galug means the tradition of Ganden. So when it's Gelug, Ge means virtuous, like Gendun. Ge is Sangha. Or Gelong. Rinpoche translated as virtue beggar. someone begging for virtue, Gelug. So it should be Galug, short for Ganden. Actually, there's a film just been made about Ganden by our friend Ngon Chopel. I don't know if you remember who he was. He was he was a Tibetan filmmaker who was snuck into Tibet. So he did a musical ethnography, or is that the ethnography? Musical. Anyway, I think you know what I mean. The history and structure of Tibetan song. He studied at Middlebury in Vermont in the early 90s. He was at Middlebury, and he wanted to record, while they were still alive, old elderly Tibetans singing traditional Tibetan songs. And so he filmed a lot of Tibetans in exile, but then he wanted to go into Tibet. And so he went into Tibet. I think he went in legally, but he wasn't supposed to be doing what he was doing. Maybe he went in as a tourist. But then he started interviewing these old people and recording their songs. And fortunately, he had the presence of mind to send out with Westerners who were in Tibet. He sent out a lot of his video reels or whatever it was recording on. This is back in the mid 90s. So a lot of that stuff was saved, but then he was captured in Shigatse, the second city of Tibet, the Panchen Lama, where Tashi Lumpa Monastery is. And he was captured and he was sentenced to 18 years in prison in Tibet. And his equipment and everything was confiscated, of course. And so quite a bit of the film that he had recorded was lost at that time. Then there was this huge campaign to free him. He was an old friend of Wendy's. In fact, he was a boyfriend of Wendy's. And at the time that we met in Australia, she was planning to bring him out of India to Australia. Then somehow I got in the way of that plan. But anyway, so she was very much involved in the campaign to free him, and she had an op-ed in the Boston Globe about him, I think in '96, I think. And then so he did make a film. So he was released after 6 years of pretty intense campaigning, and Vermont senators Leahy was quite strongly involved. I don't think Bernie Sanders was a senator back then. I forget who the other one was. So he made a film of what he did manage called Tibet in Song, I think. So then more recently, he's been making a film about Ganden, which is having its premiere on the 10th, which is when? I think maybe Friday, at the Rubin Museum in New York. So we're trying to organize a showing of that film, The History of Ganden Monastery, here in Boston at some point. So I was in Shigatse in June that year. He was arrested, I think, in September. And even in June, when I was there was a very heavy military presence in Shigatse. And that was the last time I went to Tibet. I was on my way to Mount Kailash. So then we went on to Kailash from Shigatse. Yeah, it was an amazing time. Okay, so So we're not the Gelug, we're the Galug. But I don't know if that'll take. The Ganden tradition. So Gelug means virtue. So it's been translated as the virtuous tradition, the Gelug, because Lama Tsongkhapa emphasized ordination, monastic ordination, so much, and he established all these great monasteries. Well, there was Ganden, and then Sera and Drepung, and there was then Tashi Lumpo in Shigatse, and then there was Kumbum, and was the other one in Kham? Or in Amdo. Can't believe I don't remember it. Anyway, there were 6 great Gelug monasteries in Tibet. So he really propounded this idea of monasteries and monastic ordination, and then, the study of the important texts, and as Geshe says here, that there's no independent Lama Tsongkhapa tradition. It's the Kadam tradition. But, His Holiness says that it needs to be, for teaching to be genuine, you need to be able to trace it back to Nalanda. So His Holiness always talks about the Nalanda tradition. And there's not really, just as Geshe Rapan says, there's no Lama Tsongkhapa tradition, it's the Kadam tradition. His Holiness says, well, there's not even really Tibetan Buddhism, it's Indian Buddhism that came down through the Nalanda tradition. And as I mentioned the other day, that, His Holiness had this tanka created of the 17 great Nalanda masters, and we have a reproduction of that at the center. So I think that's enough of that. So now that we've invited Lama Tsongkhapa from the heart of Buddha Maitreya, requested him to remain in front of us as a field of merit. And to this field of merit, we've made all the offerings, including the 7 limb puja from prostration to dedication. And then we offer a mandala. So before we get onto that mandala offering, let's see if Lama Zopa Rinpoche has anything to say about dedication. He does. So you find this online. So we create all this merit by reciting the previous 6 limbs. So then we dedicate that merit. Dedication is of your own merit and the merit accumulated by others, all together, for all sentient beings and for the teachings to develop, particularly the essence of Lama Tsongkhapa's teaching. So with a strong wish, dedicate like this and say this prayer. May whatever merit I've accumulated be beneficial for all the teachings and for all sentient beings, particularly for the essence of the teachings of Jetsun Losang Dragpa, Lama Tsongkhapa, to last a long time and be clarified in my mind. It does not say there in the minds of all sentient beings, but add, and in the minds of all sentient beings. So in okay. So dedication is a method to prevent merits being destroyed from being destroyed by anger. It is said in the sutra teaching request by the wisdom ocean, Lodro Gyatso Subedo, however many drops of water fall into the great ocean, until the ocean is dried up, the drops are not finished. Like that, the virtue that is completely dedicated for enlightenment does not get destroyed until one achieves enlightenment. So if we put a drop of water in the ocean, it becomes part of that ocean forever, or until that ocean dries up. So all the merits that we dedicate for enlightenment remain, I don't know, they really get destroyed when we achieve enlightenment as such, but once we reach enlightenment, we don't need them anymore. If you dedicate every single merit you accumulate for the achievement of enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings, immediately, before anger disturbs it, there is an incredible advantage. Lamas use this simile. If you have a little tsampa and another person has a little, and you mix them together, both of you can eat until the tsampa runs out. Now, without something to dedicate, it is just a prayer asking for something to happen. That's what I said before. But if you have something to dedicate, either material that is offered or accumulated virtue, you can dedicate. But without something to dedicate, the request is a prayer. So at the beginning, we made this prayer for the benefit of Geshe-La's father and Lynette's sister. So that was our aspirational prayer. The Semjung Sempa, the secondary thought, the mental factor, not the principal thought, transforms the merit into a cause for enlightenment. So remember, when we talk about mind, we have 6 principal consciousnesses and 21 mental factors or secondary minds. So it's the secondary mind that transforms the merit into a cause for enlightenment and is possessed by the wish for the merit to be unceasing. That is the characteristic of, or the meaning of, dedication. I often say during the dedication, due to all the merit accumulated by myself and by all other sentient beings. This has great importance. It's like if you and your friends collect your money and put it together, the more people's money is put together, the more there will be, and whatever you wish to do can be actualized. Sort of like a GoFundMe for merit. Buying or building a house, a Dharma center, or whatever can be quickly actualized. Similarly, when you're dedicating your own 3 times merits, dedicate the 3 times merits of all sentient beings. 3 times, past, present, and future. Or you can say all others. Others includes all sentient beings and Buddhas. So due to all this merit, due to merit of the 3 times, and myself and all sentient beings, may bodhicitta be quickly generated within my own mind and within the minds of other sentient beings without a delay of even 1 second. And may that which has already been generated be developed in order to achieve enlightenment and lead all sentient beings to enlightenment as quickly as possible. So this is a, Chanchul Semchol Rinpoche prayer, but Rinpoche precedes it by saying, because of this merit, 3-time merit, myself and all sentient beings and all the Buddhas, may, bodhicitta, as we usually do. This is the meaning of the dedication prayer, Gewadi, Lama Sangye, or whichever has the same meaning. Putting the merit all together is so powerful. As I mentioned above, because you're dedicating for enlightenment, the merit is unceasing until you achieve enlightenment. I gave the simile of the ocean. Also, the merit accumulated by Buddhas and Bodhisattvas does not have an owner. They do not think, hey, this is my merit, as we do. It does not have a possessor, so you can dedicate it. As they have, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, if they have no clinging, you can do anything with it. I'm joking. What is being dedicated is merit. To where it is being dedicated is for enlightenment. There are purposes for dedication. Actually, the main purpose is for sentient beings. One purpose is to increase the merit. One purpose is to increase the merit, but the real purpose is for sentient beings. And due to that, the merit increases and is never depleted until you achieve enlightenment. The reason you need so much merit and have increased continuously is for sentient beings. General dedication is for sentient beings to be happy and for the development of the teachings, and for yourself not to be separated from the guru. That is a basic dedication. I think dedications are very important. So, and when we do dedication, we can sort of customize it for our own particular purposes as well, to our development in the Dharma, or to benefit of our family or friends or people with whom we have a karmic connection, for the long life of our gurus and so forth, or our specific gurus. Another thing in regard to dedication is this: in the thought training instructions, it says that one of the samayas or precepts is to avoid poisonous food. This is in the sevenfold thought transformation teachings. That means the wrong conception, clinging to true existence when one is making offerings, and of course doing other actions. As mentioned in the thought training teachings, there are two actions, one at the beginning and one at the end. At the beginning is the motivation, and at the end, the dedication. So yourself, the merit, enlightenment, sentient beings, the whole thing should be sealed with emptiness by being aware that they are subtle, dependent arisings. So this is avoiding the poisonous food, avoiding the thought of self-existence, that all three exist due to being merely labeled on the base by thought. In reality, the way they are existing is by being merely labeled on the base by the thought. Emptiness means dependent arising. Dependent arising means emptiness. So the effect in the mind from these two terms is the same. The words sound different, but there is one meaning, not two. What meaning you get in your heart is one. It's like knowing a person called David who has another name, perhaps Tibetan, Tupten, blah, blah, blah. And he may have another name given to him in the monastery or somewhere, perhaps a nickname. However, one person may have several names, but they refer to one person. Tupten, blah, blah, blah. As long as you know that this person has these different names, when other people talk about David or Tupten and so on, you understand they're referring to one person. So to somebody who understands what dependent arising and emptiness mean, they mean just one thing. So often, in the prayers or when the Lamas praise Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings, it's his emphasis on this point that dependent arising is emptiness, emptiness is dependent arising. One way to dedicate is to think of emptiness and watch your mind. Think about how these three things appear to your mind as truly existent. These three things, I think he means the person dedicating, the merit, and the action of dedicating merit, and the enlightenment of sentient beings to which it's being dedicated. Then think, these which appear to exist from their own side are empty of existing from their own side. Thinking this does not interfere with knowing the existence or dependent arising of the three. Think this way, or think they are existing by being merely labeled. This is being aware of their mode of existence. When you think this way, your self-enlightenment and the merit, which appear to exist from their own side, become empty right there. You can experience that these things which appear to exist from their own side are empty of existing from their own side. Then, if these methods do not make much sense, the way to do it is to think, I'm dreaming that I'm dedicating merit. It's as if you are recognizing a dream in which you're dedicating merit as a dream. And when you recognize the dream as a dream, you know that these things do not exist from their own side. You have that awareness. This is Pabonka Dechen Nyingpo's advice of what to do in order to not cling to the object of refutation, that things truly exist or exist from their own side. So we have that, remember when we do the Guru Puja, for example, there are those couple of extra dedication prayers in English where we say, that, I dedicate the merit, which is empty from its own side, to the enlightenment, which is empty from its own side, sentient beings who are empty from. So when Wendy leads that that prayer, she'll pause for a moment after that. So we just really meditate on the emptiness of each of these things, as Rinpoche says in that prayer. It does not exist from its own side, empty from its own side. I remember very, early in the piece, Lama Yeshe was talking about the monks in the monasteries doing pujas, and he said sometimes when they do the puja properly, you'll see they'll do some chanting, and then there'll be a silence. They stop, and then they chant the next verse or a couple of verses, and then stop. So Lama said that's the actual way to do puja. Puja is meditation. Lama Tsongkhapa, Lama Chöpa, Guru Puja is actually a meditation. So if we're doing it properly, without thinking of the time it takes, then we stop and meditate. I mean, you could stop and meditate on every line, I guess, but so he's saying people from the outside who didn't know what they were doing might think it's very strange. They do this chanting and then they stop and they chant. Personally, I've never seen any monks doing a puja like that over the last 50 years, but maybe some monasteries in Tibet did it properly like that. Even at Kopan, I don't think the lamas weren't teaching young monks to do that. Anyway, that's what Lama said. So, and as I said before, when we talked about rejoicing, Rinpoche, when Rinpoche is there and we do the rejoicing verse, he'll always make a stop after that verse in particular and go through rejoicing, thinking, of our own merits and the merits of the Buddhas, the merits of the Bodhisattvas, and the merits of our gurus and so forth, and really rejoice strongly. So that's, part of the same deal. Then dedicate all the merits like this. Please grant me blessings so heresy in regard to the biography of the Guru, the actions of the Guru, does not arise even for 1 second. So a couple of things here. The biography, let's look at heresy first. Many people, myself included, have tried to get Rinpoche to stop using the word heresy. as it has such a, burning at the stake connotation. But when you look at the dictionary definition, Rinpoche says it fits. The meaning fits, and we've never been able to come up with another word that satisfied him as a substitute. So heresy it is, but it's just basically having views, what we call logta, or perverse view, or wrong views. There's no karma, there's no liberation, there's no such thing as a guru, there's no enlightenment, there's no past and future lives. I mean, all these fundamental Buddhist teachings saying that they don't exist. So generating those kind of logta, perverse views, is along with anger, is a very potent destroyer of merit. So it's another reason that we dedicate the merit as soon as we've created it, because it's so easy to have doubt and wrong views, and it's so easy to get angry at something, So, so heresy in regard to the biography, I think the Tibetan term there for biography is namta, which is, you see the life story of the teachers. Wisdom have published recently the life story biography of His Holiness Rinpoche, the biography of His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche, the two senior and junior tutors of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And so the namta is the story of not so much where they went and what they did, but the teachings that they studied, and the retreats they did, and the realizations they had, and the teachings they gave, and so forth. So, so to have wrong views, to think, oh, that was nothing, or to minimize it, or to say, oh, that didn't really happen, things like that. So we pray not to have such negative views about the teacher, and to try and always to remember, once we've made the guru-disciple relationship, to try and see that the guru is the Buddha, appearing in that aspect in order to guide us, me, to enlightenment. So the heresy does not arise even for 1 second, to be able to see in purity whatever action is done, which means whatever action you think is mistaken, an ordinary action. So the actions that we think may be mistaken, but to see them not as mistaken, but as actually skillful means. And with such devotion, receive the blessings of the Guru within my heart. So that's a prayer that Rinpoche often, or nearly always, recites as part of his dedication at the end of a teaching. I know if you've been to teachings with Rinpoche, you can, I know in the Light of the Path teachings that Rinpoche has been giving since 2009 was the first one, for the Kadampa Center in North Carolina. Not every year, obviously, but I think Deborah might have been to all of them. I'm not sure. There've probably been 6 or 7, 5 or 6. I can't remember exactly how many there have been. There's supposed to be another one next year. So sometimes, so we have to get up early there, about 4:30 or 5, to do Guru Puja. So sometimes Rinpoche would come in during the day, but usually he'd come in the evening. So it's always like, you're sitting there terrified how late he's going to go, because you have to get up early the next morning. And so sometimes, at 10:30 or 11, he'll say, okay, I'll stop here, and then he'll start the dedication. And you think, oh, good, now it's going to dedicate, so go to bed soon. But then the dedication can go on for like 45 minutes. So sometimes you don't get out of there till midnight. So it's always a challenge to watch your mind. For me, to watch my mind in those situations, you know. I think, oh God, I wish he'd stop now, you know. It's a terrible thought.
But midnight is early for Rinpoche. Now his attendants make him stop at midnight instead of 3 in the morning.
Well, yeah, that happens too. I mean, I don't think he's ever gone that late in North Carolina, but I remember I was in Dharamsala once, and Rinpoche was going to give a Haruka Body Mandala initiation, I think at 5 p.m. So everybody gathered at Tushita at about 4:30, 5, and waited for Rinpoche. Well, he didn't come till maybe 7. So by then even everyone was hungry. And so then he starts teaching, and so then when Rinpoche would teach, he'd talk for 2 or 3 hours on bodhicitta, and before he even start the initiation, and then he started the initiation. This can take a while. I mean, Lama Yeshe, I met one time in Italy, he took I think 4 or 5 days to give the initiation, Haruka initiation. I think it was before the 6 Yogas and Naropa teachings in 82. I think Lama he spun it out for at least 3 or 4 days. So anyway, so Tushita this time, Rinpoche started giving the initiation, maybe at 10 or something like that. But then it went on, and then he'd give other teachings, and then a bit more of the initiation. And, you know, by 2 o'clock, I was totally burned out. And all I could think was, oh, come on, will you finish? I mean, I just, you know, and still it went on till about 4 in the morning. So finally finished, you know. So then, you know, Rinpoche was leaving, and then everyone, you know, including me, was like this, you know, stand up, sort of, as he was going out of the room. And he stopped and looked at me and said, "Did you create any merit at all?" I was like, oh my God. You know, it was like so, I don't know what to say. But it was true, you know. I was like, I was so annoyed and upset, you know, that this was going on. I just wanted it to stop. It was just totally, my mind was out of control. You know, not that it's ever been in control, but anyway. So, so any merit that was created was being burned up, even as it was being created. Dedicate. This is extremely important. Actually, all success up to the greatest peerless happiness of enlightenment is dependent on this. So pray like this and also put it into practice. I think the dedication prayer from the long succession yoga is very effective for the mind. I like it very much. It includes recalling what the guru is, the kindness of the guru, and after that, the dedication. Please grant me blessings to be able to realize that all general and sublime realizations are dependent on correct devotion to you, the Savior. Then completely giving up my body and even my life, do only the actions which please you and thus attain you. So completely giving up my body and even my life. The associated body and mind is life. When the mind is separated from the body, then there is no life, death. So completely giving this up. Do only actions which please you and thus attain you. The Tibetan drupa, achieve, can be related to kurna, which means only. To do only the actions which please you means that from this second on up to enlightenment, may whatever actions one does with one's body, speech, and mind be pleasing to the guru, not disturbing. So I guess the actions of my mind that time in Dharamsala unfortunately disturbed Rinpoche's mind. The realizations or attainments arise in the mind only by pleasing the Guru. There's no other way, no other door. Mental progress comes only from that. You can think at the same time, from now on, up to enlightenment, may my actions become only beneficial for sentient beings. If something is pleasing to the virtuous friend, then it is beneficial for sentient beings. However, you can think of them separately in order to develop bodhicitta, the thought to benefit others. When doing these prayers, it's good to put all the merit together every time. Not only that, but in each prayer, when you're dedicating for yourself, also dedicate for other sentient beings. Try to always remember, whenever you pray for something good to happen to yourself, to also pray for it to happen to every sentient being. Dedicate for both together. Try to remember sentient beings at the same time as much as possible. It's similar here to what I mentioned during the section on offering, during the part on the inner offering. In order to achieve enlightenment quicker and quicker for the sake of all sentient beings, the offerings which are being received from sentient beings are being offered for the benefit of sentient beings. Then there's the prayer to meet Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings again. These are included in Rinpoche's dedication prayers. Due to this merit, may I and all sentient beings is not there in the Tibetan, but it can be included, as Rinpoche just explained. May I also immediately meet the teachings of pure wisdom, the victorious one, which is a pure biography and moral conduct. That means having great heart to practice the Bodhisattva's conduct and the yoga of the two stages of bliss and voidness. In other words, due to all this merit, may I and all sentient beings in all our lifetimes have Lama Tsongkhapa as our actual Mahayana Guru and not deviate even for 1 second from the pure path that pleases all the victorious ones. Often His Holiness Circle Rinpoche used to do this dedication at the end of Sojong. So Sojong is the monks, the formal confession practice that the monks are supposed to do twice a month, on the full moon and the new moon, Sojong. Due to all these merits, may all the father, mother, sentient beings have happiness. And all the evil migratory beings of the 3 lower realms be empty forever. So due to these merits, may all the father, mother, sentient beings have happiness. In the prayer, that is all it says, but you can think of all happiness, temporal and ultimate, and to cause that by yourself alone. So, taking personal responsibility, like the sixth, extraordinary intention, in the sevenfold cause and effect of bodhicitta meditation, the sixth cause, taking personal responsibility to enlighten all sentient beings. By yourself alone, and the 3 lower realms be empty forever. So Rinpoche says evil migratory beings. This refers to the evil transmigrators of the 3 realms. Evil transmigrators because they only create negative karma, or because they migrate due to creating evil deeds. After each of these, think, may I cause that by myself alone, to empty the 3 lower realms. So again, evil is another sort of loaded word, like sin and heresy. I mean, these have such kind of Christian connotations that, maybe the Christian Buddhists like it, but or relate to it. But for a lot of us who rejected Christianity, they kind of have this slightly off-putting connotation. But sometimes they're still the words that work best, because ultimately they probably have the same understanding or meaning behind them. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, for all their prayers to be accomplished immediately, the Supreme Leader, Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, accumulated merit for 3 countless eons, and with much hardship practiced the path with thought, may I be able to spend this life practicing this path day and night and thinking about the means. So this could mean with what means the teaching can benefit sentient beings, or the means to develop the path within one's mind and the minds of all sentient beings. It could mean one or the other. I think it might mean the means to develop the path. Then there is the condensed prayer of the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So this prayer contains all the Bodhisattva's prayers, 10 times numberless times 100,000 Bodhisattva's prayers. Say it at the end. So those are the two, Jampel Pao Jita Gempa Dang Kuntu Sangpo Deyang Deshin Day Deda. So those 2 extra prayers we put in Dusam Sangye Tamjaki. So those condensed Samantabhadra prayers, those 2 verses that we often say. But probably not often enough. Dedication is a remedy for heresy, or wrong views, perverse views, logta. It purifies the negative karma accumulated with heresy, and it helps for heresy to not arise. The results from dedicating are, I think, all the qualities of the Buddha. So by dedicating merit in that way, we become closer to enlightenment. And in that way, we bring all sentient beings closer to enlightenment. So then this comes to the mandala offering again. So Geshe Repton came to the mandala offering. Rinpoche came to the mandala offering. So there's quite a long teaching on the mandala offering by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I think it's probably available through the FPMT store. So we're not going to spend time on that right now. So just a couple of paragraphs here. I don't know if you're following this teaching here. If you know the most skillful way to practice the mandala offering, you do it that way, then even if you offer only 1 mandala, you're very satisfied. You have a comfortable thought, I've actually offered the mandala. This relates to how well you understand the important points of the practice, the most skillful way of practicing it. It's the same for other preliminary practices, and even the lamrim, the 3 principal paths. It depends on how skillful you are with your mind and how much understanding you have. The more skillful you are, the easier you're able to generate realization of the 3 principal paths as well as Tantra. It's similar even in worldly activities. The more one understands and the more skills one has, the easier it is, the less problems there are. So you should remember these points. So while there's this unbelievable opportunity to complete the work of accumulating merit in such a short time, if you do not do it, it's a great loss. It's the same with the refuge and Vajrasattva practices. Even if you do only 1,000 or 100, the negative karma you want to purify is already purified without needing to complete 100 or 400,000. It depends on your skill and knowing the important points of the meditation. I think I may have mentioned that reciting the Chenrezig or Vajrasattva mantra 1 time can purify all the heavy negative karma of having broken all 4 monks' root vows. It depends on the quality of the mind of the practitioners, on how perfectly it's done. It depends on how much bodhicitta there is, how much understanding of emptiness there is. So because I'm not satisfied when I offer a mandala, I spend ages. I think those of you who've done the Tara purification with me will remember. In other words, if it is not well done, doing a large number is not really an achievement. So the point is, it's better to recite one mantra with deep understanding and great concentration and pure motivation than to recite 100,000 mantras without any of those. So then, so anyway, I mean, maybe sometime in the future we can look at Rinpoche's teachings on the mandala offering. So then comes the specific requests. So we do this practice, and you know, the Lama Zopa Guru Yoga, and we get to the dedication, and then there's a mandala offering that we offer to the merit field that's still visualized there in front of us, you know, on the tip of this white heaped curd-like cloud, Lama Zopa and his two disciples. After the mandala offering, it's good to say the prayer for oneself and all sentient beings to meet Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings, which we just did. This arrangement of the practice is according to His Holiness Song Rinpoche. So Song Rinpoche was another of Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's gurus. I don't know if any of you met him in his previous life. He came to Kopan for during the 6th course in 1974. So that he was an amazing presence. Very stern, strict Lama with a kind of long white goatee, more focused than this, and longer than this. But he had the reputation of being very strict and not fooling around. So everyone was a little kind of scared of him. He was also sort of very still, and his eyes were very dark, like his pupils very dark, and you got the impression you were kind of looking into this vast ocean. So he had this attendant, Tenzin Wangchuk, this monk attendant, who I think he'd been very ill as a boy, Tenzin Wangchuk. And when he was 5 or 6, he had, I don't know, meningitis, or I mean, he had some serious disease. And they brought him to Song Rinpoche's parents. And Song Rinpoche cured him of the illness. And so I'm not sure of this story, but then I think his parents offered him to Song Rinpoche. And he ordained him as a monk and then educated him. And then he became his attendant, sort of never leaving his side. And in 1978, Song Rinpoche, Lama Yeshe brought Song Rinpoche to the West. So he came here to the States. He spent quite a bit of time in California. He gave a course there at Camp Kendallin in SoCal, and went up to Vajrapani land. And then he went to this summer school that they organized in Wisconsin at Geshe Zopa's Deer Park. It was 78, I think, before the center had really started. The Deer Park Center, you know, Geshe Zopa invited His Holiness to Wisconsin, Madison, and His Holiness gave a Kala Chakra initiation, I think, 81. I think the first time he gave it in the States was there in 81. He gave it next time, I think, in Santa Monica in 89. I didn't go to the one in Wisconsin. I was in London at that time. And then they consecrated that land. I think that land became the Deer Park Center. Anyway, Geshe Zopa organized this summer school at a different facility. And he brought, you know, Song Rinpoche was there, and the Tibetan doctor, Ama Losang, Losang Dolma Ama Losang was there. She came on tour with Song Rinpoche and did a lot of Tibetan medicine, and Geshe Rapton came to that, and Dema Locho Rinpoche. So it was a really amazing summer school in '78, and then after that, Song Rinpoche came to England. He went to our centre there. We had a centre called Manjushri Institute in Cumbria, and Song Rinpoche gave some teachings there, and it was a very cold. We'd only had the building. It was an old priory, Conishead Priory, and it was very run down. And we were able to buy it for I don't know, £70,000 or something. It was on like 70 acres, big old priory. It was kind of amazing, really. But it was very cold and drafty, and they had the doors had these like door stops to stop the wind from coming under the door, like these long tube-like things. And so Song Rinpoche was in his room, sitting on his bed as usual, and Peter Kedge was the Lama's attendant at that time, and he was hanging out with Tenzin Wangchuk, Song Rinpoche's attendant, and Tenzin Wangchuk said to Peter, "Watch this." So he picked up the doorstop, this long tube-like thing from Song Rinpoche's door, and he opened the door, and he said, and Song Rinpoche was sitting there, and he said, "Rinpoche, snake," and he threw this thing at Song Rinpoche, this snake-like thing, and Song Rinpoche sort of barely moved, but it was just the amazing thing that this strict, stern Lama that his naughty son Tenzin Wangchuk could, do the unthinkable, so throw something at him and say, like he was throwing a snake at him. It was like, anyway, I wish I'd seen it, but that was the story. So Tenzin Wangchuk is still alive, and he's the attendant of Song Rinpoche's incarnation, has been for like 40 years. I don't know how old he is. He's probably younger than me, but kind of amazing that he's actually he's probably longer the attendant of the incarnation than he was for the previous life, 40 years. I don't think we've brought Song Rinpoche to Boston. We really should. It's not easy bringing lamas these days at the moment, but he's been to California a few times. In fact, when he was young, I think when he was 9 or 10, he spent some time, Song Rinpoche, at Karuna Ketan's house in Soquel. I think Ursel was there as well. Wendy and I went to Dharamsala with Geshe Tsulga in 2005 for His Holiness was giving a transmission of the lamrim Chemo Shidak. So this was, there's a lamrim Chemo, it's a very big text, and some lama or one lama or 4 lamas, I can't remember the story now, had made notes in the margin of the lamrim Chemo. And then someone had collected all these notes and made a separate text of the notes, or had integrated the note in with the lamrim Chemo. So it was a lamrim Chemo with these different comments or explanations or something of these different lamas. Shi Dak. Shi means four. Dak, I'm not sure. Anyway, so His Holiness gave the transmission of this expanded lamrim Chenmo. And at that time we met Song Rinpoche incarnation. So he was staying at where Amalosang, the Tibetan doctor, used to have her clinic. She passed away years ago, but he used to stay there, Song the incarnation. So he was about 20. I think we met him there. He was a very nice Lama. So Song Rinpoche was one of the very prominent practitioners and propagators of the Dorji Shugden practice that His Holiness finally in mid-90s said we shouldn't be done. But up until that time, many of the Gelug, and this caused a big rift in the Tibetan community and in the Gelug or the Galug tradition, because it was propagated by Pabonka Rinpoche, and His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche was a strong proponent of the practice, and His Holiness Song Rinpoche. So they were from Ganden Shatse. And Sarah May were also strong with, well, both Sarah J and Sarah May. So it was kind of, and of course, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche and a lot of the FPMT Center Geshis. There was a practice called the Kangso, which has to be done every month. And so we used to do it in a lot of the centers. Very wrathful, powerful protector practice. But then there was always this controversy that it wasn't a protector, it was a negative spirit. So you can read a lot about it if you want on the FPMT website and lamayeshe.com website. Dorji Shugden and Wisdom have published a book about it. And so this, the teacher that the Lamas invited to Manjushri Institute, this center in Old Conishead Priory, the resident teacher, Kelsang Gyatso, was also a strong proponent of that practice. And then when, but then he turned the students at Manjushri Institute against Lama Yeshe and the FPMT, and they kind of seceded from the FPMT. So there was this very, this is about 83, 84, there was this very difficult time, you know, and when students were forced to choose really between two gurus, which is like a terrible situation to be in. And, you know, we had the feeling that this could have hastened, you know, so Lama Yeshe died about a year after that. So we felt that this could have hastened Lama Yeshe's death, this schism. And so the Manjushri Institute broke away from the FPMT, and then they started their own thing called the New Kadampa tradition, NKT. And so they have a lot of, they seem to have some external success, but I can't see that it can last because it had such a kind of poisonous root. So then when His Holiness came out against the practice, I don't know if you remember in the 90s, into the early 2000s, often where His Holiness taught, there'd be anti-Dalai Lama demonstrations outside the venue of people from the NKT protesting this false Dalai Lama and, you know, give us religious freedom. He never told people they should, he said this should not be practiced. If you practice, don't come to my teachings. But he never really instituted a ban on it, just advised against it. So this whole thing about he was taking away their religious freedom was a totally bogus claim. But you know, it's quite a difficult time. It's kind of faded away a bit now. Okay, so specific requests. So this arrangement of the practice according to His Holiness Song Rinpoche, I think a long time ago at Manjushri Institute, His Holiness and I set up a Ganden Lagema practice together with the Yonten Shiguma, you know, foundation of all good qualities. So I'm not familiar with that actually. So I'm trying to find out if that practice is actually available anywhere. So maybe by next week I'll know. So Rinpoche and Song Rinpoche put together this practice of, you know, the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga and the foundation of all good qualities. So it's good to say the prayer to meet Lama Tsongkhapa. So after, make that request, and then this one, I'm requesting the development of listening, reflection, and meditation. I'm requesting the development of the wisdom of expounding Dharma, writing, and debating. And I'm requesting you to grant the general sublime realizations. Please bless me to quickly become like you. I'm requesting to be able to generate simultaneously born bliss. I'm requesting to be able to remove the stains of the hallucinated mind, clinging to true existence. I'm requesting you to cut off the 2 points of mind, doubt. Please grant me blessings to quickly become like you. So when we do this Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, when we're doing the full practice, and especially if we're doing in retreat as the preliminary practice, to recite 100,000 Migtsemas, you know, the Migme Tsewe Te Tien Tien Rezi verse, 5-line verse. So we do 100,000 of those as the Guru Yoga preliminary, you know, 100,000 prostrations, mandala offerings, 100,000 refuge, 100,000 Bodhisattva, all these different 100,000s, which apparently if we do them properly, we only actually do one, not 100,000. But since we're incapable of doing it properly, we have to do 100,000. So it's not just about 100,000, you know, there's a whole meditation and visualization that we do. So we go through this Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga with the invocation and the visualization and the offerings, the merit field, 7-limb practice. And then we come to then we do the mandala offering, and then we come to this actual recitation of the verse, a number of recitations. So the common practice of Migtsema consists of meditation on purifying and then receiving great wisdom, clear wisdom, great wisdom, clear wisdom, quick wisdom, profound wisdom, and then the wisdoms of explaining, composing, and debating. So seven wisdoms. Great wisdom, clear wisdom, quick wisdom, profound wisdom, the wisdom of explaining, the wisdom of composing, and the wisdom of debating. So when we do the recitation, we visualize receiving those wisdoms. So since it's a little extensive, I won't start that now. We'll do that next time. But it's very important to know how to do those meditations and what we're actually receiving in return for doing the practice. So, Rinpoche goes into this, and so does Geshe Rabden, so does Circle Rinpoche. So that's what we'll do next week. And then you'll know how to do the complete practice. Any questions? Okay, so we'll do the dedication. So, we generated bodhicitta at the beginning. We discussed Geshe Rabden and Rinpoche's teachings on the Ganda and Lagema. So we have something to dedicate. So quickly, before we get angry or generate perverse views, heresy, we should dedicate the merit. So we'll do the dedication. So we think, because of this merit, quickly reach enlightenment, because of this merit and the merit of because of my 3-time merits and because of the 3-time merits of Buddha's bodhisattvas and all sentient beings. So we heap up all those merits, and especially the merit of this session. May I quickly reach enlightenment for the sole purpose of enlightening all sentient beings. So that's what the meaning of these prayers that we're going to do is. And we also dedicate this merit to the long life of our gurus, to the spread of the Dharma throughout the 10 directions, and the enlightenment of all sentient beings. And specifically, we think of Geshe-La's father and Lynette's sister, and we think, because of this merit, may they be born in a pure land where they can reach enlightenment. So remember, as I said before, that there are pure lands where you can reach enlightenment, and there are pure lands where you can advance on the path but not reach enlightenment. So Rinpoche says better not to be born in those pure lands where you can't reach enlightenment. So he says, may they be born in pure land where they can reach enlightenment, and if not, then receive a perfect human rebirth. So this life we have now is better than being born in a pure land where we can't reach enlightenment, oddly enough. So may receive perfect human rebirth. May they, Geshe-La's father, Lynette's sister, they receive perfect human rebirth, meet Holy Mahayana Guru, practice Dharma, never be born in the 3 lower realms. So adding that little bit is important. And quickly reach enlightenment. May they quickly reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So whenever we hear of anybody's death or, so we can also pray like that, whether we know them or not, actually, because we always have to remember our own impending death. So because of this merit, may all that happen. And again, there'll be puja at Medicine Buddha puja at 1 o'clock for Geshe-La's father. Maybe we can throw Lynette's sister in there as well. Okay, thanks, Bob.
Saji perki jukshin me tok tram ri rabding jini de gyen padi sangye jindu mikte uwagi dokun nam dak jing la cher pashuk jetun lame kutse rabten ching nam katrin le chok chur ge padang lo sang ten pedren me sasum gi droe mun sel tak tu ne gyuchi Yedam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. From my two collections, vast is space that I've amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time. May I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach that state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time, by even this graded course to enlightenment completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their children. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes an effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig remain in life till samsara's end. Savior of the snowland teachings and transmigratory beings, who extensively clarifies the path that unifies emptiness and compassion, to the lotus in the hand, Lord Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be fulfilled. You who uphold the subduer's mortal way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Mahayana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Precious supreme body mind, may it where unborn arise, and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Halfway down the page is the dedication of Samantabhadra, I think. I did the second paragraph. I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings in all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drakpa to shine forever. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as best by the victorious ones thus gone of the three times, so that I might perform good works. Mig tse ter chen chen rezi, dream kien pei wang po jam del yang, gang chen ke pei Tsugen Song Kapa Usang Rakpe Jabla Sowa De. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everybody. I just want to correct something I said before, which is the second verse of the short mandala offering, the requesting turn of wheel of Dharma from the Lama Zopa Guru Yoga we do, the requesting, the beginning mandala, not the one we just did. So that second verse, you know, Venerable Gurus from love and wisdom, clouds dancing most in your Dharma sky. Pray loose a rain of vast profound Dharma fields of silence just as needed. So that one is from the Lama Zopa Guru Yoga, the verse that we talked about at the beginning. Okay.
All right.
So
So
thanks
everyone.
everybody, and how to do the practice next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.